The news is now that I'm pregnant, which is so exciting. It was a Thursday at 2 p.m., the Santa Barbara courthouse, and the only reason we really did it, committed to it, is because I had the day off work. So we were like, let's just go. And it was amazing. I honestly wouldn't want to do it any other way. I'm still working on the show, which has been honestly a dream. I won't give away all the secrets, but we cover the bump. It kept me in that cycle where it's like, you're clearly not sick enough to warrant help, to need support, to ask for help. And it just kept going, where I was like, well, I'm not tiny enough, which means I'm not sick enough, which means I don't have a problem. Her work ethic is second to none. If you can believe it, she's even better than she appears or what people say in magazines about her. She's just one in a bazillion.
Ash Brewer, welcome to the Stellar Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I want to say something so cliche like long time listener, first time caller.
Oh
because
my
that is
gosh.
truth.
That's the first time anybody's ever said that. Yes,
No
it
way.
took 3 years. So thank you. Thank you. I'm absolutely flattered. You are, of course, you're beaming in from LA. You're working over in Hollywood, of course. You've been starring. You've recently, last year, reprised your role as Ivy Forrester on The Bold and the Beautiful. For people that you know, you know. I mean, I grew up watching The Bold and the Beautiful, as I think you might know, Ash. So Forrester, name very familiar to me. But you have had a very, very eventful start to the year. It's February 15 as this episode's coming out, Ash. You've got some really exciting news which you're very generously sharing with our audience today. But I might even just circle back a bit to what happened in December, which was that you got married, you and your
I
husband,
did.
Mark.
I knew we got married. It's so exciting. Honestly, we'd been engaged for 2 years and we were very used to being engaged. And we liked it, but we just couldn't quite figure out how to do a wedding, where to do it. He's English, I'm Australian. We both live in LA. We have a great, amazing, large group of friends here in LA as well. So we're like, oh my God, how would we even do this? I don't know why, but I had an inkling for the longest time. Even once, when Mark proposed to me, I was like, I'm just not that stressed about the wedding. Like, I just have a feeling it's going to be perfect for us. And I mean, the news is now that I'm pregnant, which is so exciting. So
Congratulations.
I'm going into my third trimester now. So we got married last December, and it fell into place in 9 days. We committed to it. We were like, let's just do it. We had a date set at the Santa Barbara courthouse, which is beautiful down here. The grounds are gorgeous, and we were only allowed us plus 10 people. So we had to pick our closest friends either side. He had his parents, my mum flew in, and it was just this perfect cyclone of everything falling into place the way it was meant to be. And it just felt so perfect. And my girlfriends surprised me with this old white vintage car, and we drove the PCH the whole way down, and it was a perfect clear day, which it never is. And there were dolphins jumping. It sounds ridiculous. It was just the most picturesque, most fun day. I wore a white silk dress from Bumpsuit, which it came in the mail like 2 days before the wedding. It was a Thursday at 2 p.m., the Santa Barbara courthouse. And the only reason we really did it, committed to it, is because I had the day off work. So we were like, let's just go. And it was amazing. I honestly wouldn't want to do it any other way. It was great.
It sounds beautiful, and nothing like focusing the mind, having a limited amount of time. Here's the window that will
Exactly.
work, but also nothing will keep you hyper-focused, Ash, like having to keep your guest list at 10 and under. I mean, that's a feat in itself, by the way.
It really is. I had a friend of mine say, she was like, were you the kid at school who would do your assignments the night before? And I was like, yes. And I've pretty much done everything I just can't break away from, I need that level of urgency to really get something done.
Ash, I looked at the beautiful wedding photos of you and Mark from your ceremony in December, and I have to say I would never have guessed that you were pregnant so far along. As you say, your baby is due in May, and we're talking in February.
Yeah.
How have you
Yeah.
managed to keep it so under wraps? Because this will be the first time that all of your fans and followers will have any inkling that you're soon to be welcoming your first child into the world.
I know, and honestly, I'm so excited. I said to Mark, my husband, this morning, I was like, "Oh, I'm just so excited to finally put a little post up, and because it wasn't that I was like really keeping it a secret or anything. It was just nice being in the bubble of a pregnancy bubble and no one really knowing. Um, I imagined I'd be someone who wanted to tell the world, and it's not that I didn't. I actually got really sick in the first trimester just with nausea, but it knocked me for a really long time. And we're just edging up to the third trimester. It just feels like the perfect time. And it's been fun. I'm still working on the show, which has been honestly a dream. I feel like for me, working pregnant is such a gift because I get to not think about being pregnant for a really long stretch of time. But we cover the bump, and it's just lovely to be in a zone every day of, working, and then the weeks go fast and the weekends roll around and I'm like, oh, there's a baby coming soon. And it's kind of funny. Well, I guess I was a little old school in my thinking when it comes I've obviously never told a boss before or a job that I'm pregnant. And I'd really only just started ramping up. My storyline had just started ramping up on the show after being around for quite a while again. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to tell them. And I went in and I saw my boss, he's the head writer, and he's amazing, Brad Bell. And I sat in his office and I was actually there to talk to him about something else, but I was like, now's the time. And I was like, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. And I had, for some reason, this doesn't match him at all, but for some reason I was like, oh, this is really going to be it, I don't really know any actors who are pregnant on screen and continue on. There's a handful probably that we could both count. And he basically just gave me a high five and a hug and he said congrats. And I've not stopped working since I told him. And I just feel so supported by him and by the whole production. I mean, I've known these people for 12 years. So to be pregnant with them, and they've known me since I was about 22, it's just so special. It's just such a special thing.
Storylines are very closely guarded on a soap opera like The Bold and the Beautiful. So I definitely don't want to get you into trouble with the fabulous Brad Bell. But
Yeah.
as you said, at the moment, hiding the bump on screen, if it's not giving too much away, I think there's always such entertaining folklore in actors who either have to cover up a pregnancy on screen. Examples like Julia Louis-Dreyfus on Seinfeld, because it just didn't work for that character to be pregnant on screen. So they had to disguise that she'd be carrying around vases and lots of clipboards and things. And then, of course, there'll be a time where they'll write it into the storyline. So all of a sudden, a character will be pregnant, which might have been a bit unexpected, but that's to work around the fact that the actor had some fabulous news. So, as I say, without getting you into trouble with the powers that be on set at The Bold and the Beautiful, what can you tell us about navigating that with the very complicated world of wardrobe on a fast-running, glamorous show like that?
Yeah, well, it's been quite an interesting peek behind the curtain, even for myself, to be honest. It's so funny, in between action and cut, I really truly forget that I'm pregnant, and it's more about, I'll have directors whisper in my ear, being like, "Honey, you're just rubbing your tummy in the scene," which is
I
a new thing that started because I've popped quite a lot now. But um, yeah, it's it's very comforting. I also feel like for the first time, maybe I'm less interested in how I'm appearing on screen and I feel very present. So because I am in clothes that, we're trying to cover it and I have a little bag in front of, or big bag in front of me, or, whatever the trick of the day is. I'm thinking about those things and I'm not necessarily thinking like, oh, this tight dress, like how does it look from this angle on that like body chatter is really quiet. So it's been quite a nice grounding experience where I'm on set for the first time and I'm really in my body and yeah, I just feel very present.
Ash, I might go back in time a little bit, long
Mhm.
before you were on set of The Bold and the Beautiful.
Mhm.
Well, not that much longer. I mean, you're only 35. So we're still talking about very young
Feels
actor
like a
here.
long time ago.
You were only 12 years old when you started your acting career. You had your breakout role in the Sleepover Club, and then a few years later, you were in the teen drama H2O, Just Add Water. Ash, we've heard a lot recently over the last years. There's been a bit of a reckoning about how child stars are treated in the culture, and certainly those television shows. People like Jeanette McCurdy, there's been a bit of an expose, say Nickelodeon over there in the US. For you, coming through as a young actor and a teenager and a preteen when you first started,
Mhm.
what are your memories of working on sets in Australia at that time?
Wow, good question. Big question. I feel like, when I did start out, it genuinely was fun. I can't speak for everyone. I don't know. Yeah, I might be missing something with Australia, but I do feel like we were quite protected in Australia. In comparison to child stars of America, like the level of fame here is just insanity. Um, but yeah, no, for me, when I was young, starting out, it was just a joy to be on set. It was really the only place I wanted to be. And we were working with, our cast members, our cohort, they were our age, we were all around the same age. We were between that 12 to 15. So, it would be like, it was just kind of silly and innocent and fun, and there was a lot of joy and protection. But I do feel, I started Neighbours when I was 18, and that I loved working on that show. That cast is unbelievable. I can't believe it's off the air. I think it's a travesty. But I basically finished high school. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was at schoolies, I'd auditioned for Neighbours, and everyone else was planning college. And I was like, I hope I act. And then I got really lucky. And literally the week after high school, I got the role in Neighbours for 3 years, which I ended up staying for 5. You are viewed as an adult immediately. No one's like, oh, look at this, you know, teenager that's come in. You were just in a cohort of adults and you're kind of expected to sink or swim. I actually developed an eating disorder at 18, and I tend to link it with the job, but personally, I don't. Now that I'm recovered and I'm in recovery and I've done all the work that I needed, it's not because you're in showbiz, that you end up with these things. So I can't really blame the show for that.
I think there's so much power in having someone like you open up about something like an eating disorder when it's so vulnerable and helping other people feel a lot less isolated in their own experience. Your path to recovery, what was the
Yeah.
timeline for you, Ash?
Yeah, it was so what I was diagnosed with in the end, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to diagnose bulimia, but I was bulimic, and I also struggled with anorexia and restrictor mindset. So just it's not an obsession with, oh, I want to lose. It's just a complete 24/7 mind obsession with being smaller, taking in less. But the timeline for me, so yeah, it developed pretty quickly once I moved out of home and moved to Melbourne and started working. Honestly, in a weird way, my eating disorder was my best friend. Um, it was a coping mechanism that I, for whatever reason, I could dig and come up with all the reasons why I needed those coping mechanisms, but in the end, it doesn't really matter, unearthing it all. I just used it to deal with insecurities, anxiety, time off, loneliness. There's a myriad of reasons. When I was 19, I actually went to a psychologist in Melbourne who I guess just wasn't an eating disorder specialist, to be frank. And I went in and told her, this is what I'm doing with my time off. And I can't stop. And it's been a year and I'm scared. And she basically just put it down to, honey, you're young, you're an actor. It kind of makes sense. And most people grow out of it. That was really what I left. And I did leave with that because I never went back. And that then followed me through my 20s and it really ate up a lot of my 20s. Um, but yeah, I wish that wasn't, that was the only outreach call I made, and the help wasn't there on the other end. So I guess in terms of me being open about it now, God, I just would have loved to have known. I just didn't realize that what I was doing was a thing that a lot of people struggle with, and that there is help and support there for. And it just caved me in, and I stayed within the disease, within the disordered thinking for so long. Before again, I reached a rock bottom at 31 where it was really, ugh, it was just the end of the rope, it was very clear that I couldn't keep existing the way that I was. And my thoughts were dark, but they weren't suicidal or anything like that. I was just hopeless. And I knew that how I was living, I couldn't continue to live that way because it was insanity. So this was from 18 to 30-ish. And I finally met this therapist, and I'd had a few sessions with her. And I was talking about this thing and that thing, and really avoiding. Oh, by the way, I this is how I manipulate food. This is my obsession. Through all the holes in my stories, I think she started piecing together what was going on. And she shared with me that she had a history of eating disorders, and that she actually found recovery in these 12-step programs. So I took her advice, and I jumped onto this 12-step program, which, and again, I want to preface this and be sensitive to it because, you know, anonymity is a huge component to these 12-step programs, and I respect the anonymous cause dearly. But personally, I'd like to out myself because if I'd known that I needed that group to be just a little less secretive, to have found it potentially earlier. So I just think talking about the group itself, it's one is called Overeaters Anonymous, and then there are different sects, which is like Anorexic Bulimics Anonymous. They're amazing group therapy tools for people struggling with eating disorder. Amazing. But if I'd have known that that was at my disposal, and I was in my early 20s, I really could have used it.
My heart broke when you had that missed opportunity, that squandered
Mm.
opportunity when you reached out for help. And I don't want to
Hmm.
overstep, but I'm just so happy. And so this sounds patronizing, so just extremely proud and grateful to hear that you got the help that you need and you're helping shine a light on making that available, and you've been in recovery for 5 years. I think the other assumption is that you look a certain way if you are struggling with an eating disorder. Please don't speak to anything that you're not comfortable with, by the way. But how, if you were to write a book about it, it might be called Not Sick Enough because you don't look
Hmm.
quote unquote skinny enough, or there has to be
Yeah.
certain obviously exhibited behaviour for even a healthcare professional to identify it. Again, I think that's something that we probably don't talk about enough.
Yeah, I agree. I guess the easiest way to explain it is the cycle that I found myself in was that my disorder was so insidious, and my obsession with being tiny by any means, I would do anything to. Thank God when I was 25, these weight loss shots or anything were not available to me because I just hate, and I think they're miraculous and amazing. And if you need them, I make great, good for you. But just to think that something like that exists now, oh, thank God I was in recovery before they became accessible. But in answer to your question, yeah, the way that my disorder manifested was it almost ate itself to keep it going. So because I never deemed myself tiny enough, when I thought of someone with an eating disorder, I imagined the person in a hospital gown with their spine showing, with the feeding tube in their nose. I imagined, the worst case scenario of someone struggling with these disorders. And because I never reached that, and in a really messed up way, I couldn't. My disorder was like, you can't ever get that small. That it kept me in that cycle where it's like, you're clearly not sick enough to warrant help, to need support, to ask for help. And it just kept going, where I was like, well, I'm not tiny enough, which means I'm not sick enough, which means I don't have a problem. And that's how the cycle continued on.
Let me ask you a bit about today. When we were talking about your wonderful baby news early on, you were saying how
Mhm.
it's really, you feel a lot less self conscious and just more in your own skin when you're on set. Obviously, being pregnant and the changes that happens to a woman's body during that time. How, because there might have been, I imagine, a fear that that might have reignited some of those old habits and old belief systems. It sounds as though the reverse has happened. Is that
Mhm.
true?
Yeah, well, I'm so proud to say that my recovery is really strong, and I feel like I know where I've been and I know where I am now, and it truly is night and day difference. And I'm just so, God, I'm just so happy to be pregnant now without also battling those voices and that darkness. It means that my daughter also won't be mirroring behaviors that are unhealed in me. And um, yeah, I guess that's kind of the proudest thing about my life right now is knowing that I won't, because of what I've learned, because of how I lead my life now and how seriously I take my recovery, I just know that through osmosis or however these things transfer, I really know that she won't. I guess I just gave it away that I'm having a daughter, didn't I?
You did.
I
You
didn't mean to
did.
say she, I'm having a girl. But she's lucky, because the cycle can end there and she won't have to watch a mum who is just struggling every day to figure out what to eat, how to be smaller, how to, I ate this, so now I have to exercise that way, or I have to. It was just a constant script in my head about how to manage my body. It was never ending. I decided to step away, and I mean, no representation anymore. I let it all go. And I started working at a production company. I took up a real job. I had real jobs. I wasn't an actor anymore. To step away from acting and then to focus on recovery from that for three, everything has just been a really beautiful accident, maybe not an accident, to get me to where I am today. Because ultimately, it's like that saying, like, if you love it, let it go. And if it comes back, it's really yours. The fact that I'm back on that show and that opportunity came around again, and I get to walk onto set and be with people I adore with a whole new set of glasses. And I just feel so lucky. I just feel so lucky to. I'm also sober. I've been sober for 3 years too. That was a part of my recovery journey. So it was in those 3 years away from the industry, I really collected myself and ironed out some kinks. And the fact that I get to continue doing it now, and I do owe it to just taking a little time out and putting recovery first, you know?
And putting in a lot of hard work. You know, you said at one point, I was really lucky. I mean, what a massive achievement to be in recovery, to be welcoming your daughter into the world, knowing the example that you can set, that you've broken that cycle. You must barely recognize yourself sometimes, Ash, on set. I'm not talking about being pregnant there. The noise
Yeah.
that was in your head, the exhaustion of living with all of that angst and self loathing,
Mhm.
you must just think, wow, I've got all this headspace and all this time and energy now to actually focus on the things that matter.
Yeah, truly. And I think that's a really big thing when it comes to people who, decide to really turn a page and see what's on the other side is that you do get a lot of time back. You get a lot of time back and you get a lot of healthy thoughts and you have to figure out how to fill that time, you know? That's when alcohol jumped into its place, and I knew that straight away where I was like, oh, I'm filling it with another numbing agent. This is just another form of exactly what I was doing. So I had about a year of dealing with that. And then once that went away, the two working together for me was just that was kind of the special recipe for me to be like, oh, I've really caught my breath now. And now I can actually figure out what is next.
As you've been very articulate, and I think given a really good explanation of the complexity of the things that can lead to make somebody predisposed to an eating disorder, or then develop an unhealthy relationship with alcohol and anything that will sort of numb things for you. If you were to give some advice to your younger self or to the industry as to how we can make it a better environment for the people, the young women and the girls that are watching people on screen and in magazines and being back at them at the culture, and then of course the people like yourself that are there in the middle of the culture, and how you navigate these often unattainable beauty ideals with them not being conflating with the other pre-existing conditions that can lead to an eating disorder.
Yeah, I mean, wow, that's such a good question. And I mean, I am absolutely no expert on any of this. All I have is my own experiences, which I can speak from. But I think people can have a relationship with their body where there's a constant yearning to improve, to change, to manipulate, to, you know, what was really helpful for me. And again, this was given to me. This is not a tool I came up with by myself at all. Um, but figuring out how my eating disorder served me was part of cracking the code with what it was filling. So, you know, I'm really anxious. I'm not now, thank God. But I was a really anxious kid and I didn't really know where I belonged, and I desperately wanted to be like, I'm here and I've earned this, and I really want to be a successful actor. And it was almost these dreams that I had that quickly became my reality, which was amazing. But then asking for them just felt a bit wrong. And there was something in that dichotomy where I just couldn't handle I couldn't handle it, you know. It was all just a little bit too big for me at the time.
Ash, I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of your support network and your friendship group
Mhm.
there in LA, but a lot of them, of course, like you, came from Australia. When you were a
Yeah.
teenager working on H2O, that's where you co-starred with Phoebe Tonkin, who's remained a
Yeah.
really close friend of yours. In fact, I believe she introduced you to your husband, Mark. Did you ever foresee, as a teenager working on a show, that not only were you in meeting a lifelong friend, but someone that would play a really critical role in your future?
Oh, I had no idea, but I love thinking back to, you know, I don't know, I love thinking back to maybe us saying hi for the first time, just being like, hi, and not knowing that that person was going to lead me to my husband one day. Um, yeah, it's one of those, sometimes, you know, you look at things like that and you're like, oh, it was all kind of written somehow. Um, But yeah, oh gosh, she's just so great, Phoebe. If we had this dream of if we did the big, big wedding, we were going to ask Phoebe to get ordained and actually marry us, because we just thought that would be so fun because she played matchmaker and it really worked. But yeah, no, Phoebe is just she's just the best, and it's funny, you know. I feel like yeah, we a lot of us we started working so young. I personally can't remember my life without Phoebe being in it somehow, or people talking about it, or the name even. You know, she was just always around in the best way, and it's just funny that it led to my whole life is, you know, because Phoebe was like, "You should see my friend Mark."
I also love the idea of the women, including Samara Weaving, who I believe you're
Yeah.
working with in a film, and then, of course, Margot Robbie. You spoke, Ash, about when you moved to Melbourne to star
Yeah.
in Neighbours. You're only 18, you said earlier, trying to figure out where to live. Now,
Yep.
infamously, you then ended up being flatmates with Margot Robbie and were in Neighbours before. I think people listening to this probably heard of Margot Robbie. I don't know if you know Ash, she's, starring in a little film
Whoa.
called Wuthering Heights. So she was in this film called Barbie, which you may know about because you were in Barbie as well. But again, I'm sure you get asked about this all the time, but I suppose it's sort of that kind of fairy tale moment. As you say, the first moment you saw Phoebe, you could never have foreseen the role that she would play in your future and the paths that you would both have. And both hugely successful in the industry. But I'm sure you get those flashbacks to your first meetings and those early days working and living with Margot as well.
Oh my gosh, of course. And honestly, I could talk about we have an incredible friendship group here in LA. There's about 10 of us. We've known each other for a long time now. Some of us for as long as, we were teenagers when we met. I could I wish I could talk about them all day. Um yeah, I mean, Margot right now is just she literally is king of the world and rightfully so. And she is just I keep, I know Wuthering Heights is coming out, and I don't want to say too much, but I keep reading the quotes from Jacob Elordi, just kind of doting on her, and especially how she is on set. And, when the world reacted to that, I was like, oh, I realized I didn't think twice about it because I've been on set with Margot, and she was that amazing on set when she was 18. I was like, I get it. So, I'm just so happy for all the success that she's experiencing in her life because anyone who knew her when she was on Neighbours when she was 18, she worked harder than anyone. And I don't think she ever stopped working to the capacity that she did. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding, It's just her work ethic is second to none. And if you can believe it, she's even better than she appears or what people say in magazines about her. She's just one in a bazillion, that woman.
Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie, of course, both from Queensland. A lot's been made about
Oh.
that in the international press. These two people playing these iconic characters in Emily Bronte's novel. Obviously, Emerald Fennell's done a very own special adaptation of it, and they're ruling the world. You're, of course, from Queensland as well, Ash. They are wrapping up their world tour for Wuthering Heights in Australia this week as you and I are speaking. We've got Margot and Jacob in Sydney. It's a shame that you're not here, but that would have been the trifecta, the Queensland trifecta, no?
I'm sure, yeah, the real Queenslanders all out on the on the town. It is quite funny that two Queenslanders are leading the biggest movie of the year, what it feels like. It's just amazing. What a cool thing. We actually, when we watched the movie, we had a very small group of friends watch Wuthering Heights together, and I won't say much, but someone did make a funny Queenslander when they were both on screen for the first time, and I thought it really is amazing. Just God, from Brisbane and the Gold Coast to Hollywood, it's amazing.
It really is. Like I say, a fairy tale is a cliche, but it does have that fairy tale component. Let's wrap up our conversation by talking about today and then the future for you, Ash. Have you thought much about what comes next in terms of maternity leave or what you'd like for your career? I mean, not to bring it back to Margot, but again, I have been thinking the way that Margot has handled this press tour for Wuthering Heights. It's been really fascinating how she's been able to, I think, avoid that narrative that we often apply to a new mum, I would argue more so than a new dad, that it becomes all about that. Where do you see your career heading to in the short term and maybe long term after your beautiful girl arrives in May?
Yeah, good question. I mean, again, I'm so lucky with the response from Brad Bell at Bold and the Beautiful and how he's handled my pregnancy almost in a way that it doesn't exist, which has just been, like I said, such a gift. Everyone deserves a boss like Brad Bell. Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess, like you said, you don't really know. I'm very aware that I don't know who I'll be on the other side. But I I truly love what I do. I love the pace that it works at. I just love high turnover storytelling. It's just so fun. We shoot 8 episodes. The show shoots 8 episodes in 4 days, which is unheard of. There's people are doing 40, 50 pages a day. And I feel like once you get used to that pace and that level of chaos, you can kind of carry that into other areas of your life. So maybe in a way it's really prepared me for motherhood. But But yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, I have a baby who doesn't cry and sleeps perfectly, and I just go back to work and keep doing it, and she's so proud of me. But yeah, time will tell. Time will tell.
Well, I'm wishing all of those things for you, Ash, and I think also I love the idea that in a soap opera like The Bold and the Beautiful, there's so much flexibility to kind of rewrite anything, isn't there? And a case in point was when your character Ivy Forrester started. She was Australian, and then
Yes.
they clearly got tired, I guess, of the Australian accent, and all of a sudden your character pivoted to talking with an American accent. I mean, only in daytime soap opera can that happen, and no
I
one sort of blinks an eye.
I know. Do I sound American now on the show, or do I sound Australian now on the show?
You sound American now. So was that intentional? Did they? I mean, there's the odd. I think Australians can hear it, but
I'm
when the
sure.
character first started, I mean, she was very
She
much,
was
yeah.
very stressed. I think there were like kangaroos in the background of scenes, like toy kangaroos, literally. I often say that when I speak to Australians, it's very Australian, and I'm with Americans all day, every day. But they think I'm so Australian. And then when I talk to Australians, they're like, you sound American. So, well, I guess I'm just somewhere in the middle. We keep joking in our like friend group with all the kids. We're just like, oh God, what accents are they gonna have? And I was like, well, we only really have Australian friends here in America, so I think they're gonna have little Aussie accents for quite some time.
Well, Ash, it has been so lovely to speak to you. Congratulations on all of your wonderful news. You have an amazing year ahead, but also, as I say, heartfelt congratulations and huge applause to you for all that you have achieved personally and professionally in these last few years. I think there's so much beauty in the fact that you're in this genuinely glorious moment of your life and have been so open in helping other people find a bit of hope if for the parts of your story that resonate with them. So thank you for your candor today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I'd just like to say as well that the help is out there, and if these thoughts are spiraling for you as well, just oh my gosh, I don't know, DM me and I'll send you a link of Zoom meetings. I'll do anything, I just think making sure people have channels to the right support at the right time, it's really essential. Because
Yeah, absolutely.
you don't want to miss that window of I think I might need help and then not being able to get it.
So true. We don't want what happened to you to be still happening to other young women in 2026. We'll definitely have a link in the show notes to some resources. And of course, a link to the Instagram page of the fabulous Ash Brewer so you can keep an eye on what she's up to and maybe see some baby photos when you're ready. But if not, in the pages of Stella, Ash.
Yeah, definitely. You got some.
Thank you again. All the best for the coming months. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you back in Australia again soon.
Oh, I know. I can't wait. Thanks for having me. This was such a nice time.
It was lovely. Thanks so much, Ash Brewer.